So, little bit of a disappointing Super Sunday, Old Firm Sunday, whatever you want to call it. Yesterday, watched the Old Firm game in a pub by myself. Had a couple of pints, very, very boring. Very, very boring. And then caught the Liverpool Arsenal game later on. First half at my girlfriend's auntie's party, and then the second half in the car and on the phone. Not a lot to talk about in either game, to be honest. I want to go through Liverpool Arsenal first because that's the game that has the goal. I don't think there's too much in depth to really go into about the Old Firm. I'll touch on that after before we go through the rest of the Premier League fixtures. But let's start at Anfield. Again, not a lot in it. Arsenal probably come and start as the better team and kind of have the better first half. If again we look at the momentum graph on FootMob, it kind of shows that in the first half. To be honest, bar up until about just before the goal, the 66th, 67th minute, the more momentum's kind of with Arsenal in that game. And it did feel like that. But I wouldn't say it felt like Arsenal were really putting Liverpool under pressure, weren't putting Liverpool under threat. Overall, I just thought that was Arsenal that we've seen last season and the season before. Just that little less impetus there to go and get that win at a big ground at Anfield when you're quite rightly going to be title contenders, who I was considering even in my predictions, my revised ones that I'm going to do, potentially putting them top. I think that's changed a little bit after this game. But it wasn't like they peppered Alisson. I'm not trying to say Liverpool peppered, Raya, because they didn't. Neither side peppered anyone. And I know it's a big game, so you're probably not really typically going to do that, particularly away from home. But they're still missing it. They're still missing it a wee bit. And will they get it as the season goes on? I don't know. I mean, if we look at the starting 11, I know Saka's out. I know Odegaard's out. If you look at it there on FootMob, for those of you that are watching, for those that are listening, it's got all the players up and it has the ratings. And a lot of Arsenals are in that orange kind of 6 rated out of 10 to, I don't think anyone's touching 7, 6.8. Calafiore looks like he's got the highest rating. Sorry, Rice does at 6.9. It's kind of how I felt Arsenal were. It was. You felt a bit dangerous. You felt a bit nervy as a Liverpool fan, particularly from the set pieces, which they took an age every time to take and set up, and you thought, oof, but Liverpool handled it superbly. Kanate handled it immensely. Joe Gomez, when he came on, handled it immensely. And Virgil van Dijk has just been an absolute colossus for Liverpool in the last 2 games, and it's not as if that's like a shock or anything like that. We all know who he is and what he does, but I think this season, I'm getting the feeling that, Liverpool are going to have a lot of goals. We know Isak's been announced, which I'll get into just after we talk about the game. But I think if Liverpool are going to be a little bit more open in these other games, Van Dijk's going to be the man that's going to lead them to the title, probably along with Alisson there being at the back. We're going to need them to be really, really strong this season. So Liverpool handled it well. And then as both Slot and Arteta said in their press conferences after the game, it's a moment of magic. Those games are just a moment of magic, and it's a Szoboszlai free kick. It's Cristiano Ronaldo-esque, the way he steps up to it, the way he hits it with the dip and the curl and everything on it, and it's a screamer. It's a goal deserving of winning a game like that. And I'd had a few beers messaging my mates Greg and Hobbis on the way home on WhatsApp about it, and I was like, Szoboszlai is Liverpool's most important player, and obviously quite rightly they were kind of saying to me Alisson and Van Dijk and stuff like that. And but I really think in these last 3 games, you're seeing everyone thought with Wirtz being bought for Liverpool, that Szoboszlai, the media were just like, Szoboszlai loses his place, Szoboszlai's out. And the whole time I thought, he plays him all the time. And I think, we talk about all these players and all these things that they need to have, and particularly going forwards, your flair players and your goal scorers and things like that. Liverpool have a guy there in Szoboszlai that just runs around and is always there, does his job to absolute perfection. He might not be great on the ball all the time. He really isn't. He frustrates me a little bit. But you can't not put a guy in your team that just runs around and is just at it for 90 minutes, and he can go and he can go and he can go. I think I made a joke last season that I'd love to be his missus, because I don't think he could stop, man. He could probably go all night. And it's so underrated. And a lot of these videos have been talking about how the game is not that complicated, and it's not. And when you have multiple guys that can do that in your squad, which Liverpool have, but Szoboszlai kind of embodies that, and Liverpool, and It's incredible. It really, really is. I don't think there's anything too much to say on Arsenal. I just think again, it feels very samey. It does feel very samey. And we're 3 games in, and they were 6 from 6. They've played 3 now, lost 1, and going away to Anfield's not a terrible thing, but there's just a little bit of impetus if they didn't quite go and get it. I think not just because I'm a Liverpool fan. I think Liverpool was a lot more fascinating. The fact that we've talked about how everyone's talked about how they're so open against Bournemouth, how it was a bit similar against Newcastle. But I said this about Slot last season, and I've been saying it. He's very, very, very adaptable. I'm not about to sit here and say he wanted it to be that open against Bournemouth. He wanted it to go that way against Newcastle. Of course you don't. You always want to be compact and be solid. But I think he comes into this game knowing they're going to have to be extra compact and extra solid. And you've seen the team able to do that. You see us withstand it. It was a lot more, it was a flat 4, I noticed, off the ball, with the midfielders come and break us down with the 4 behind them. It was just an understanding of what this game is going to need and how it's going to be, and we can adapt to it. And we still have our principles there, of course you do, but we're going to adapt and we're going to play this game this way. So, look, I expect Liverpool to tighten things up. As I said, I expect a lot of teams to tighten things up. I mean, I think the next international break, as you come back, it's getting players back in rhythm again with the club staff who's been injured in international duty. So I think the next 3 is a bit similar to this. It's just get through it. Can you get points on the board when you're not playing well? And then after that, the second international break is when everything kind of clicks into place. But really, really, really good from Liverpool. Slot, I don't think he gets a lot of credit. As much focus for what he does in the game and how he changes little tactical things and who he brings on and when he brings on. And I thought Arsenal subs yesterday were going to be what made the difference against Liverpool. They bring on Mosquera early doors. Saliba gets injured, but they bring on Eze, they bring on Odegaard. And they bring on the young lad Downman, obviously 89th minute, doesn't really count. Liverpool bring on Curtis Jones, Gomez and Chiesa and Endo, again 89th minute. And if you look at those names, you're back in the Arsenal bench and those players come on and be better. But, I just listened to Gary Neville's podcast talking about the game and he was right. Liverpool actually got better when those subs came on, which was really, really interesting. And I didn't feel like Eze and Odegaard made too much of a difference to it. And I thought that's where the game would be won and lost. I knew it would be tight coming into about the 60th minute, about 0-0. And it went the other way. And I think maybe that has a bit to do with Liverpool being at home and the Anfield crowd got up and everything like that. And it was just an all-round, really adaptable, different type of performance in Liverpool. And it could have easily gone 0-0, albeit a world-class strike from Szoboszlai. But I was thinking when I was writing down my notes for this video, going to use this as like a context for what I think we'll see from Liverpool and a lot of the top teams that we'll see is I remember playing just local team North Berwick, not this level at all, and there was a team in our league called Calvary Park who were excellent. They were great on the ball, they moved the ball around, they were really well drilled, really well coached team, won the league consistently. And when you played against them, you knew what it was going to be. You're going to have to really run around, you're going to have to be switched on in your position and be tight and be compact with each other. And that's not getting a lot of coaching either at the time. It's not like we're getting coached or drilled to be like that. You just kind of knew that as a group because you knew what the game was going to be like. And then there was a team we used to play in our league, I remember, Edinburgh United, who were always at the bottom of the league, and you just kind of showed up to the game and you could be a bit more open, you could walk around, you maybe didn't need to run back there or be as tight as compact there because you kind of just knew you were a lot better than them. And fine, they might get a goal, but you knew you were going to get 3. And look, it doesn't always go that way in football, don't get me wrong, but my point of the example is I think we're seeing that with Liverpool in these last 3 games. Again, I think he would like them to be a lot tighter and everything like that, but again, most adaptable manager in the league for me, and it's 9 points from 9 for Liverpool, albeit people saying we're not performing very well, but I'll take it. Look, I tweeted this, I grew up watching Man United do it every single week and having to deal with that in school and everything like that and thinking, you were shite yesterday, and I'm saying the same things to the Man United fans and they're not caring, they're getting the win and they're going and winning all those league titles. I've seen it with Celtic and Rangers. I'm growing up around Rangers fans, family, so I see it both sides of Celtic and Rangers in the past where they're maybe not playing well, but they get the goals in the last minute, they win games. It's about getting the 3 points. It really, really is. I thought Kerkez was a lot better yesterday, again, in a bit more of a compact shape. He'd obviously listened, he'd switched on. I said a lot about Wirtz. I think he's struggling to adapt to it. I obviously said he'd be the Ballon d'Or winner. I think he looks like he might be a bit more of like a link-up 10. I thought he'd come in and be a 10 that was like a goal scorer and playing, and look, he might. We're 3 games in and he's going to adapt to the league, but he looks more like a link-up player. I've seen a thing on Twitter about like, people are slagging off Wirtz. Here's a compilation of what he did in the game yesterday, little moments, little turns, spinning away from people, playing passes through, and all those things. I just think the expectation that you put on him and you look at him, and that's why you don't want to get caught up in the whole transfer fee thing and stuff like that, is that you got to take the player for what they are and what they're doing, and I think he'll click and get a bit better. There's times where he takes too many touches, but look, St James's Park away is probably the hardest place to go at the moment in the league, certainly in the top kind of 3, and then playing against Arsenal, who are big, physical, strong midfield, it's going to be tough for it. But Footmob have given him a 7.6 rating. He had moments, like I say, just being a little bit too harsh on him, but overall I think he'll adapt to the league quite well, and I think he'll be fine. Maybe not quite a Ballon d'Or winner. So yeah, I think, again, just to wrap it up, Roy Keane said this in Sky Sports after the game. Listen, Liverpool are going into the dressing room and looking around saying we didn't play great there, but again, we've got another 3 points and we're 9 from 9. And Keane said, I've been part of many teams that done that and won titles. Neville has said that on his podcast today. He's just been there. He's been a part of it. He gets it. He sees what's happening. And that is ultimately what it's about. It really, really is.